Man, oh man, I can already smell the hate comments for this video. So I don't normally do review type videos, but I've been playing Underground 2 a good bit recently, and I'm gonna make a little video on why I think this game is kinda overhyped. Following the commercial success of its predecessor in 2003, with the first Underground selling a total of 15 million copies worldwide, EA just had to cash in and make a sequel, right? And so 1 year later, Need for Speed Underground 2 was born, and fans absolutely loved it. So much so that if you look at discussions on the best Need for Speed game, Underground 2 is commonly among the top 3, next to the obvious Most Wanted 2005 and Carbon. With that being said, let's discuss some of these things that made this game so beloved among Need for Speed fans. Underground 2 was the first game in the franchise to feature an open world, which would later lay the foundation for what the franchise as a whole would become. And if I may say something, the city of Bayview is still gorgeous to this day, and each part of the map has its own unique charm. From the luminous downtown style of City Core, to the Japanese toge style of Jackson Heights, and the industrious section of Cole Harbor, each section of the map was unique and memorable in its own right. It also fixed one of the major criticisms about the first game, that being the repetition of tracks. Looking at you, Market Street and Terminal. The customization, while some parts just straight up didn't age well, was an absolute love letter to the early 2000s tuner culture. Taking heavy inspiration from the first two Fast and Furious movies, Underground 2 just had a level of customization that I honestly have yet to see from another Need for Speed game. From the color of the nitrous purge, to trunk accessories, to even the style of your doors, nearly every aspect of your car was completely customizable. Now there is a negative in all this, but I'll get into it later. But let's go ahead and cover the last positive of this game, which is the car sounds, which were a vast improvement from the recycled sounds of Underground 1, and a lot of them were actually pretty spot on to their real world equivalents. Now that I've covered all the great things about this game, I'm about to criticize this shit hard. So for all my die-hard Underground 2 fans out there, you have been warned. The main gripe I have with this game is the blatant padding of the playtime. See, I assume EA really wanted to take advantage of its new open world and get you familiar with the streets of Bayview. So, if you wanted to do a race, you had to drive to the location. Wanted a new ride? Had to drive to one of the 3 car lots. Wanted to make said new ride look like a Hot Wheels toy? There's no one-stop shops here, buddy. There are 4 different types of shops depending on what you wanted to do to your car. Body shops, graphics shops, specialty shops, and performance shops. And guess what? You had to drive to each and every single shop individually, one after the other, to create the ultimate racing machine. This can be pretty frustrating, especially when you consider that the games before and after had one place where you could pretty much do everything you wanted to your car at one time. Of course, this can be bypassed nowadays with PC mods, but all of the constant driving from point A to B in between races can make it a bit of a pain to revisit on consoles or emulators. Also, the progression itself can make this game feel quite lengthy and repetitive at times as well. The means to get through each stage are quite simple. Win regular races, sponsor races, URLs, which if you've seen my 30 annoying things about Need for Speed games, you should already know how I feel about those. And finally, build up your ride and land those DVD covers, which I'll also be discussing in just a little bit. Anyways, there are 5 stages total, with stage 5 requiring you to win 35 regular races, 9 URLs, and 4 DVD covers before you can unlock the true ending of the game. Which, of course, I also gotta discuss in a little bit. First of all though, let's talk about the aforementioned DVD covers. These are 100% mandatory and are a major part of the progression of the game. And to be selected to appear on one of these DVD covers, you had to build your ride up to a certain star level depending on the stage of the game, eventually having to build a car up all the way to a full 10 stars. And unfortunately, the only way to do this was to do some things to your car that these days is just straight up criminal.
What the hell?
Sure, you could always keep your main car that you use for racing clean and just keep a box in the garage for the sole purpose of these DVD covers, but it's still a little ridiculous and, above all else, hinders players creatively, preventing them from making the builds that they actually want to make, and instead sacrificing the looks of the car just to see the end of the game. Which brings me to my next point, the story in this game.
I mean, it's alright,
It's a bit more in-depth than Underground's story, which pretty much was just race until you beat Eddie, but it's not as in-depth as something like Most Wanted or Carbon, or even Undercover.
very dangerous.
The story, presented through these goofy and outdated comic book style cutscenes, takes place directly after Underground 1, where you're phoned by a mystery man to join his crew as he sees your rising reputation as a threat. Of course, the player says, "Hell no," and turns the guy down. Then, while en route to a party with Samantha, we're blinded by a Hummer in an alleyway and we crash our prized R34 GTR. And the attacker turns out to be none other than the mystery man who called us before, Caleb Reese. Anyways, Caleb is presented to be the big bad of the game, manipulating sponsors in his favor to keep the money rolling in and remain the best racer in Bayview. But as time goes on, we start establishing a reputation for ourselves as one badass street racer, and Caleb, being Caleb, can't f***ing stand it, eventually being pushed to the point of challenging us himself, with the loser leaving Bayview forever. Sounds cool, right? Well, this final race sucks. Not because it's too hard, but because there's actually a lack of challenge. I know I've said in the past that Razor is one of the most disappointing final bosses in racing games, but I honestly think Caleb takes that crown for the absolute worst. See, Caleb drives a GTO, which, in all honesty, is, unfortunately, one of the worst cars in this game. Now pair that with an AI that can't really handle the car, and you get a pathetically easy final boss, even on the highest difficulty. I even went back to take all the upgrades off of my Corolla to see if somehow it would be more of a challenge, and while it did take longer, I still beat it on my first try, even while playing on hard difficulty. Also, this race is 5 laps long and takes place on one of the longer circuits in the game, which means that this race can take you upwards of 10 minutes to complete, going back to what I said earlier about padding the length of the game. And with all these factors, you'll be more annoyed and counting down the laps until the race is finally over than you will be excited about completing the game. Lastly, I just wanted to bring up kind of a dishonorable mention more than anything else, is the custom tuning. While it was definitely a nice addition to the game and can make a big difference, it can be kind of overwhelming and overall user hostile, forcing new players or people like myself who don't know what they're doing who want to tune their car to look up a guide online. But I'm willing to overlook this as it wasn't really a necessity, and as I said before, it was a nice touch for its time and a pretty big step up from the first Underground. Anyways, that's going to conclude my review / criticism / retrospective of Underground 2, whatever you want to call it. Now, do I still think this is a good game? For the factors of nostalgia and the cultural impact and what it means to me, yes. I just personally think that a lot of the gameplay has aged like milk and doesn't quite live up to the hype. But I do think it did a lot of things better than its predecessor, yet like I've said, there are some things that it just did worse. And if you're wanting to play this game again in 2025/2026, I think you'd be better off getting it for PC and downloading a completed save file and just customizing tons of cars and doing random races, since in my opinion, that's where a lot of the fun lies. That being said, if you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, and if you want to keep up with future videos, definitely consider subscribing to the channel. Anyways, that's gonna be it for me. See you on the next one.